I'd like to welcome you to Dublin, first of all. On behalf of the question I'd like to ask you is about this piece that we're about to play. The audience may not be familiar with your music because I believe you've never been performed in Ireland before. But when you hear it, you will hear that it's like, to me, there's a personal reaction to it. It's like a film made of very disparate elements. It changes from one scene, film or play or something, that changes from one scene to another, completely unrelated. Something like the book called Cloud Atlas, which is now, I haven't seen the movie by the way, but the book is very interesting, where the stories are not only separate stories, but also written in a different style. And it'd be interesting to know if you can tell us why the piece is written in such a sort of totally scene-changing kind of way.
It is probably, no, it is the oldest piece of tonight's program. It's from, actually, I wrote it in 1986, and it was written not for a film, but I must admit that in other works of these times, I was very inspired by filmic methods of cutting, of cutting scenes together, but also to try to find an inner connection in order to make the cut work. And that's something when I do my music theater work, is actually the point on which I'm working most, is not the scenes, but how they connect. What happens exactly in the moment between one and the other. And that's also when I came to the rehearsals, I asked you always to, when you work on one section, just start a few bars before in order to rehearse exactly that moment. It was a piece which was written for ballet, for the Frankfurt Ballet of William Forsythe, and one of his major dancers, Amanda Miller, she commissioned this music, and for me it was a very important biographical moment because it was my first sort of stand-alone composition for an ensemble in which I was not performing myself. I think in this piece, I tried to find out if experiences from the improvising area can be written down in a way. This doesn't work completely, that's why I came here to give you the last advice by hand, because I think there's still so many details in how to treat an instrument and how to find a different approach to a classical instrument, which is hard to bring down on paper. And but for me, it was, for a second reason, important. It was my first collaboration with another ensemble of contemporary music, Ensemble Modern, international ensemble based in Frankfurt, and it was the first collaboration which still lasts on. We're just having, in the next month, we have 7 opera performances together. We did about 5, 6, 7 different evening-long programs since then, and it was the beginning of a very close relationship.
You mentioned that this was the first piece that you wrote that you weren't involved in performing, but you didn't say what your instrument was as a performer. What was your instrument, and does that influence you in your character as a composer, or have you left that behind now?
Nowadays, I think I compose very much from my piano biography, but I also studied cello, I played a lot of guitar, I played saxophone, a lot of electronic sampler, and so I had different perspectives to the instruments. For example, the cello solo in Red Run is something I could sort of try out myself. And to the basic structure of this piece, maybe there's something to add also for the audience, is that it is sort of has a lot of solos for different instruments, like starting with the trio, but then there's a solo for the violin, then there's a solo for the trumpet, there's one for the trombone, and at the end for the cello. So it tries to shift the attention within the ensemble, and that's had also to do with the fact that this original ballet was staged in a way that the musicians were on stage, and they were not in the pit, and they were even involved in the choreographical movements.
When you compose this piece, the movements being so disparate, and obviously from the point of view of a ballet or indeed a if it were filmic music, each piece of music might go with a scenario that may be there to provoke a certain reaction in the dancer, but they do represent almost discrete styles of music. So that I wondered, was it an intentional thing that you thought, okay, enough of that, we'll do something completely different, or did one thing lead to another as a reaction as you went through?
Actually, I think I don't have a style. I think I have a working method, and up to now, even now, I work with really very different ensembles and aesthetics. I worked with a heavy metal group, I worked with the Hilliard Ensemble, which will perform tonight. I worked with the Berlin Philharmonics, but I also work with a vocal virtuoso, David Moss, and improvising musicians. I work with African and with Greek and with Japanese music. So I think I don't see myself in expressing an old style, but I rather believe in the importance of how to work with the different musics. And that's probably when you can recognize my writing is rather in how I work with different elements of different temperatures or different styles. But it's not the personal style in a way that that you will easily recognize a certain way of string writing or things like this, like you heard before in other pieces.
Well, it may not be a distinctive, identifiable style, but it's a very distinctive piece and a very identifiable one. I think that I'd recommend all of you, after hearing it today, to seek it out on recording and revisit it. I've found it very enjoyable to work on it, and I just want to say thank you for that, and thank you for talking to us.
And it was very enjoyable to work with you all, guys. Thank you.